before the release of his first sci-fi novel, Hardwired, in 1986. Walter John Williams wrote 5 nautical adventure novels between 1981 and 1984. To Glory Arise, originally titled The Privateer, is set during the American Revolutionary War, and the next 4 books pick up almost 30 years later during the Anglo-American War of 1812. As we will see in Destiny's Way, Williams loves naval battles. Destiny's Way made it to number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list for the week of October 20th, 2002, and was ultimately on the list for 2 weeks. When I originally read Destiny's Way back in 2002, there were some parts that left me deeply dissatisfied, but I couldn't quite articulate why. So this reread was very helpful in pinpointing what aspects of the novel worked for me and what parts didn't work so well. So, a brief summary. The tide has finally turned for our struggling heroes. Jacen Solo returns from a year's captivity in the hands of the Yuuzhan Vong. Luke Skywalker sets about re-establishing the Jedi Council. And after a year of waiting, the New Republic finally chooses a new Chief of State. But on Mon Calamari, the ailing Admiral Ackbar has conceived a tactical plan that might mean the beginning of the end of this war with the Yuuzhan Vong. After Matthew Stover's Traitor, which was really only focused on 4 characters, Destiny's Way is another large cast novel again. We cut back and forth between Han and Leia on a diplomatic mission to the Imperial Remnant, Luke and Mara and some other of our friends trying to ensure that the right person gets elected Chief of State so that they can actually start the Jedi Council. Jacen Solo returns to civilization, returns to his family, and has to decide what he's going to do next. Jaina Solo has been promoted to Major and is attempting to train the rookies in her twin son squadron. Vergere's here, being Vergere, and Supreme Overlord Shimra finally makes his way to the new Yuuzhan Vong capital of Yuuzhan Tar. After Traitor's terrifyingly intense philosophical journey, Jacen returns to go on vacation, I guess. I don't begrudge him any free time since Vergere and the Vol definitely put him through the ringer. But so many characters talk about how Jacen is important, how Jacen will be the key to understanding and defeating the Yuuzhan Vong. But then Jacen's not given many opportunities to prove himself. He returns and he's immediately treated like a child again, which was a little jarring after all the maturity he gained in the previous book. Luke is worried about the influence that Vergere has on Jacen, so he separates the two. Jacen ends up serving again as the Jedi Meld Coordinator on Admiral Crayfay's flagship. When it looks like Jaina is going to be in danger during the Battle of Ebok, he rushes off to try to save her. Doesn't really do anything, but, you know, at least he's working out some of his issues. And speaking of Jaina, I thought that she had really made some progress in Enemy Line's Rebel Dream. She was able to see how she was in a bad headspace and that wasn't sustainable, and was able, I thought, to move beyond it. But as Destiny's Way picks up, she's right back where she started, thinking that she's going to die at any moment, so there's no point. Which was so frustrating. On the whole, the New Jedi Order has a lot of good continuity, but there are bits like this where you thought a character had changed and had grown, and then a few books later, they're just right back where they started again. And, remember this clip from a few reviews ago? But Jaina's just breaking my heart, and I can't wait for this war to be over and for her to just finally have some peace. Yeah, I forgot about Luke's prophecy during the Jedi knighting ceremony. I name you the Sword of the Jedi. You are like tempered steel, purposeful and razor keen. Always you shall be in the front rank, a burning brand to your enemies, a brilliant fire to your friends. Yours is a restless life, and never shall you know peace, though you shall be blessed for the peace that you bring to others. Take comfort in the fact that, though you stand tall and alone, others take shelter in the shadow that you cast. Williams has said that he did not plan this part, he was just writing the novel, and that's what happens, and it must have been the Force. But no one pushes back against this at all. They all hear this frankly depressing, bonkers prophecy, and the only person to think, oh, that doesn't sound right, is Jacen. But he just thinks, like, that doesn't sound right, and then doesn't say anything. There are sometimes in Star Wars where the Force seems completely separated from what is best for an individual, and that is a really stark example there. I feel like people always call Jaina the Sword of the Jedi, and we forget what it means, that she will always be alone and she will never find peace, and she's just this weapon to be used with no thought about how that affects her. And especially with how Jaina's acting in Destiny's Way, that's just so upsetting. That's not the legacy that I wanted for her at all. Luke is actively trying to get the Jedi Council reestablished. He's been trying to do this since the very beginning of the series, but this is the first time when it looks like it might be feasible. But to get that done, he has to wade into politics, which isn't his strong point. It would be Leia's, but Leia seems to have set all that aside and she doesn't want to get involved. And I guess I'm fine with Luke talking to politicians, but it felt like especially Lando and Card went a little too far in trying to get Cal Omas elected. They bribe people and then blackmail them with proof of their bribery, and like, guys, I know you're supposed to be the smugglers, the ones not quite on the legal side of the law. I'm a little surprised Luke supported that. And then once the Jedi Council is established, Luke makes the decision to have it be half Jedi members and half members of the New Republic government. And I'm not quite crazy about that either. Luke has always struggled with how to define the Jedi Order. They receive significant financial support from the New Republic government, but at the same time, they don't want to be just a tool of the government, something that the government can use or misuse. And I feel like letting half the council be the Minister of State and of Intelligence and of the military and of the Justice Department, not quite the best option, because that just seems like the government is going to get even more involved in the Jedi Order. And I'm not sure how to reconcile that. Han and Leia get the deep core hyperspace routes from Admiral Palayan. And then they're very happy that their son has returned to them. Han ends up leading the Smugglers Alliance ships during the Battle of Ebok. But that's really their involvement here. They're less to the forefront than some of the younger, newer characters are, which I'm fine with. Han and Leia had a lot of prominence early on, especially in regards to their marital problems, but they've solved them now, so they can take a break. Vergere comes with Jacen to Mon Calamari, and she's held and questioned for a very long time. And then they let her go, and she just sort of hangs out in the Skywalker residence, accidentally eavesdropping on conversations, which is super awkward. But at the same time, it felt like some of the major decisions here were made by Vergere, while other characters just sort of flailed around. We finally get her backstory delivered to Jacen, that she was an old Republic Jedi. She went off with the Yuuzhan Vong for 50 years. And that just felt sort of awkwardly done. I'm not sure the Vergere that we saw in Star by Star in Traitor would have come right out and told her backstory like that. And I'm also not sure she would have identified herself as an Old Republic Jedi, because she seemed very much in Traitor like she was not a fan of that dichotomy between Jedi and Sith, and she would put herself now, after her experiences, outside of that. But I did like a lot of her conversations with Luke. I thought the dialogue was very well done, and I loved the way that she would push against his ideas and that he would sometimes accept it, sometimes not. It did feel a lot like the Vergere of Traitor. It is frustrating to me that Vergere is the only one that took action against Alpha Red. Luke's like, this is everything we're opposed to, but meanwhile, Vergere destroys all their research, so they'd have to start over again because genocide is not an option. And then in the final battle of Ebok 9, Jacen senses that Jaina's in trouble. He leaves Crayface's flagship. He doesn't accomplish anything, though. And Vergere does, but it means her death. And with her death, we've lost both so much of the Old Republic Jedi traditions, as well as more of the insight she could have given our characters. Admiral Ackbar returns. He's long retired, he's in very poor health, but he finally comes up with a strategic plan of how they can defeat the Yuuzhan Vong. And I like it, but I also wonder why no one came up with anything beforehand. I know the answer. It is, there are 19 books in this series, and we needed to make sure that things go very bad for a while. But basically, his plan has two parts. Number one is that they'll do a lot of small engagements, small skirmishes against the enemy where they know they can win, and that this will work to train their rookie pilots and make them ready for part two, which is to lead the Yuuzhan Vong to a trap where they're not able to escape and just decimate their fleet. Part number one goes pretty well. We don't see a lot of examples of it, but we do see a minor engagement on Duro. With the Battle of Ebok 9, they're able to leak intelligence to the Yuuzhan Vong that get them there. They use the Jedi as bait. And once the Warmaster realizes that Jaina Solo is on Ebok 9, he's willing to throw away huge numbers of ships to either capture or kill her. And speaking of the Yuuzhan Vong, we finally get to see the entrance of Supreme Overlord Shimra, but in doing so, it takes a lot of the focus away from Warmaster Tsavong Lah. The Warmaster has been a strong foe. He has a good tactical mind. His weakness has probably been that he's a true believer of the Yuuzhan Vong. He truly believes in the gods and the religion and the sacred mission that they're on. But we don't get to see a lot of his tactical mind because what we mainly see him in is the trap in the end. I also feel like that lack of focus on Tsavong Lah makes his final death scene just fall a little flat for me. I'm glad that it was Jaina that was able to kill him in personal combat, but he doesn't really say anything, and it felt a little bit like an ignoble end for such a prominent character in the series. And Shimra is a bit of a mystery. He's obviously very powerful. He seems to have some sort of ability, like a telepathic ability, but the end also opens up the possibility that it's not him, that the situation is very different than it initially seemed. I just can't get a really good read on him other than he's just a big old dude and he's got rainbow eyes. Fortunately, Nominor's here to be Nominor, to delve into the Jedi heresy, to realize that they're not well structured and that he could probably do a better job. He falls prey to the false information that leads them to that trap on Ebok 9, and he gets the heck out of Dodge because this is Nominor, and he is very self-serving. So I mentioned in the intro that Walter John Williams loves naval battles, and you can see that in the battles here, especially in the final battle of Ebok 9. He loves how ships move against each other. You can follow most of it, which is good because sometimes I find that the space naval engagements get a little confusing. Jaina seems to get a little too flustered during battles, which I'm not sure I buy, with both how jaded she had been in previous engagements in previous books and also with her current I'm going to die attitude, but she is very concerned about her shipmates, her fellow pilots, which I guess could explain that. And I liked Jacen being the meld coordinator, keeping everyone together, making the Jedi work better together, and I think that will be something that we'll see more of. But Williams also really likes politics. And I too like politics a lot in books, but it doesn't work so well for me here. I think it comes down to some of the conversations just feeling rather dull and prosaic, as well as me not agreeing with some of the decisions that are made, and I think that may have tainted my view of all these political scenes. But the dull nature of a lot of the politics and how it was such a focus for so much of the book led me to feel like the pace was a little slow until we got to the lead up to the Battle of Ebok 9. Destiny's Way is about 450 pages, which is a lot shorter than Star by Star, but still means that there's a lot to wade through before you get to the really exciting bits towards the end. But I think my biggest issue with
Destiny's Way
was how poorly at times it fit with the books that came previously. This was, I suspect, what dissatisfied me so much in my initial read years ago of Destiny's Way. Jaina had made real progress with her issues, except then she doesn't. Jacen has really matured and grown into a strong adult, except he regresses back in here. Wedge and the others had come up with this insider plan to fight like the old Rebel Alliance, except now they don't. Danny Quee was working on things, but now she's been taken off projects that has nothing to do. I'll link in the description to interviews with Walter John Williams from circa 2002 that, for me, shed a lot of light on why this issue existed. In an interview with TheForce.net, he said, "The chief problem I experienced was that I was early delivering my manuscript and that other authors were late. I don't blame them for being late. I've been late with books in the past, and I know how easily it can happen. As a result of this, I didn't get to actually read the 4 books prior to mine until after I'd completed my own, which resulted in a lot of rewriting in order to deal with retroactive reality checks." As a newbie to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, Walter John Williams was just familiar with the movies. He was sent a lot of the reference material, but he didn't have the background with the Expanded Universe books like some of the other authors did. And I think it really shows here because there are a lot of giveaway lines where I suspect he sent in his manuscript, they sent it back and said, you have to address this, you have to address this, you have to address this. And so you have these awkward bits where we mentioned that Winter's with Admiral Ackbar because her husband Tycho is off with Wedge. Williams wrote his manuscript having no idea of Winter's history with Tycho and then feeling that he had to insert these explanatory lines. It just doesn't always fit well with everything that came before. I think the most egregious lack of fit issues come with the developments that happen in the enemy lines duology, because Williams wasn't able to read those books and was just going off of outlines. It just feels like all the progress that happened there is lost. There was an online rumor that Walter John Williams never read a single Star Wars book when he wrote Destiny's Way, and I don't think that's true. I think he did immerse himself in the Star Wars universe and really enjoy the process of writing for it. I just don't think he has as good of an ear for Star Wars as some of the other writers do. When Han and Leia find out that Jacen's alive, they send messages to him, and Han's message is something like, "Way to go, Sprout," which, what? No? That doesn't sound like Han at all. Some of the characters sound okay, some of the characters sound off, but your mileage may vary here. I just might be more sensitive to these issues of tonal dissonance, I guess. So, in short, while all the books after Star by Star have featured the tide turning for our heroes, this is a major victory. The Warmaster Tsavong Lah is dead, the New Republic is revitalized, and the Jedi Order finally has some structure going forward. But at the same time, I felt like up until the preparations for the Battle of Ibak 9, the pace was a little slow. And to me, Destiny's Way has a lot of niggling tonal issues and continuity issues that did affect my enjoyment of the book as a whole. So next time I'm going to be reading an ebook novella that's set between chapters 21 and 22 of Destiny's Way, Elysia by Walter John Williams.